Together tonight's informational meeting. My husband and I live on Jones Mills Fellstown Road, which is in the footprint of the Rustic Ridge mine, and so we have a very great interest in what's happening. As your meeting notices have indicated, this gathering is being sponsored by the concerned citizens of our area and the Mountain Watershed. The concerned citizens are these people. You'll see some of us have signs on here, and we've been working with the Mountain Watershed for several years because we share a deep concern for the mine's environmental impact as well as its potential effects upon property owners. And so, as we have been reviewing studying the development of the mine's permit application, and in the process, we've learned a great deal about how it may affect our community and our properties. The purpose of this meeting is to provide you with useful information regarding the underground coal mine proposed for this area. Topics we will cover are identified on the blue agenda that you no doubt picked up when you came in. Tonight, we're going to present two basic kinds of information. First, we will give you a clear picture of the current status of the proposed Rustic Ridge No. 1 mine, describing the legal appeal of this mine's recent approval. And then secondly, we're going to share with you the kinds of information that property owners and residents who live in the footprint of the planned mine operations need to know in order to understand the mine's potential impacts to your properties and what steps you need to take to protect your properties, including your private water supplies and above-ground structures. So, this is an informational meeting. Each of the presenters will attempt to follow an agreed upon time sequence, so that we should be able to conclude the prepared presentations by 8:30 and have a full half hour for questions you may have. Now, we've provided writing tools. There are little tablets and pencils, I believe, around, so that you can note any questions that occur to you as we proceed. But we're going to go right through the agenda with the presentations before we address the questions. At the back of the room, you'll find a table with very valuable reference information, much of which you may select for your use and take home tonight. Those reference items that refer to a specific topic will be discussed when it's identified during the presentation. Barb McMillan will be available back there to help you sort through and select what you may need from that resource table. A copy of the final map that was produced by the coal operator as part of the application for a permit is on display way back in that far corner under a pretty good light. And it has a lot of information on it about properties, structures, wells, springs, and plus much else. And many of us are familiar with that map, and we can help you if you want to locate something on that map later on. Also, as you've noticed, there are refreshments available, and we give a special thanks for all the homemade goodies that several of those who have been working on this project have provided for all of us to enjoy. So without any further ado,
Marty.
Is Emily here?
Emily's running a few minutes late. She'll be here about 7:15. So just switch her with whoever's.
All right. Well, then instead of starting with Emily Collins, who is going to give us the lowdown on the mine situation as it stands and the appeal process, apparently she's been delayed, we'll just jump to the next item on the agenda, which I think is me. Let me see. Right. I'm up, and I'm going to talk to you. Can you hear me without this? No. Okay. Sorry. If you don't mind, since I do have a microphone, I'm going to sit because in order to provide you with the amount of information I think is really important about the private water supplies, I've written it out and I am going to do it from a prepared presentation, and I will sit to do that and you'll still be able to hear me. So here we go. So this section of our program will deal with the water supplies in the area that are affected by the Rustic Ridge No. 1 mine. the private water supplies. My interest in this subject began several years ago as the coal operator was in the process of developing an application for this mine. I've monitored this development and I have paid particular attention to the water supply issue because of its significance, and I've become rather familiar not only with the DEP regulations involved, but also in how the applicant has described how those regulations will be followed. There are several kinds of water supplies that we're going to cover in this part of the agenda. I'm going to present important information about water supplies. I'm going to present important information about private water supplies, including wells and springs, and how they need to be protected if deep coal mining occurs under them. Water supply provided by the Indian Creek Valley Water Authority will also be considered after my information. After we proceed, I will call to your attention specific reference materials that are available back there that are going to help you learn more about the things that we're talking about tonight. But first I want to note that what I'm going to share with you is what you need to know should we actually become faced with the reality of the Rustic Ridge mine. However, as will be explained by Emily shortly, DEP's approval of the mining permit is being challenged through the appeal process, and it's our desire and expectation that the challenge will be successful. But in the event that the mining should occur, then everyone in the affected area needs to know the facts about possible private water supply disruption or loss, as well as the possible financial effect upon those whose current water supply comes from the Indian Creek Valley Water Authority. The footprint of the 2,886-acre area of the permitted Rustic Ridge mine includes those properties under which coal mining may occur, as well as a perimeter area around that for which the mining company has responsibility for, among other things, damage to water supplies. In this footprint, there are 601 properties identified, each given an ID number with property owners' names attached in a listing on the main map, which I've already suggested that you might want to see is back in that corner. Of the 601 properties, 148 of them have no structures or water resources. 217 currently have water only from the ICV Water Authority, and the remaining 236 properties have water supplied by private wells and or springs, with a limited number of this group also tied into the Water Authority. Throughout the footprint of this mine, there are at least 173 wells and 89 springs providing water supplies to property owners, and these could sustain damages due to deep mining. Although initial water testing results for about 200 properties are documented, there are a number of water supplies that have not been tested because of property owner refusal or the inability of testers to contact owners. Nevertheless, the extent of the dependence on private water supplies in this area is significant, and thus it's a great concern. Insofar as the coal mining company's responsibility for private water supplies is concerned, these responsibilities are defined in Pennsylvania law dealing with underground mining of coal, specifically detailing performance standards for water supply surveys and restoration or replacement of water supplies when necessary. The details of these responsibilities are found in DEP's regulations, which govern information required to be included in an application for a deep coal mining permit. The surveys of water supplies that are noted in the law refer to the testing that must be done in accordance with DEP regulations as a part of the application for a mining permit, and subsequently more water testing as mining progresses. There are two categories of required water testing: background sampling and pre-mining. Those of us whose properties are located in the boundary of I previously described in the footprint, and who have wells and or springs as a source of our water supply, were visited by technicians from CME Engineering several years ago, and samples were taken of all water supplies to satisfy what is referred to in the regulations for background sampling requirements. There was a Form 8.13A that was completed for every well and every spring, and as required by law, all the property owners received copies of the results of this testing, and these results are included in the information that is contained in the coal operator's application to DEP for a permit to operate this mine. You probably, if you're in that category, you probably remember receiving the copies of those results. The second kind of water testing is found in the regulation, and it's called water supply pre-mining surveys. Now, this is a different kind of water testing that will be done. This testing must be done for all water supplies within 1,000 feet of the area that is depicted on a 6-month mining map prior to the date the operator submits the map to DEP, which then must give approval before mining can commence. And so every 6 months in a coal operation, every 6 months the operator submits to DEP a map which shows underground what's going to be mined in that 6 months, and a lot of other information too. And with that, must also submit the results of the pre-mining surveys for all of the properties over the coal and within 1,000 feet of the perimeter of where the coal is going to be mined. Now, these regulations for pre-mining testing require more information about the wells and springs than the background sampling did. And it's important that property owners monitor this testing, understand what needs to be tested. I'm not too far away from it. I'm sorry. Let me have a drink while I take this. Just push my arm when you need to, okay? So it's really important that property owners that are faced with pre-mining surveys, because they're going to be mining under their property, understand what needs to be tested and monitors it when it's being tested to make sure that everything is done. A complete description of this has been produced and is available in the handout. I'm not going to go through all of the requirements, but I want to call your attention to 2 pieces of information that are available back there on the resource table. The first one is, it's an 8.5 by 11 sheet like this, with a little bit on the back. This is a copy of a sample letter that the coal mine operator must send to all property owners that lie above the property in the 6-month mining map and 1,000 feet around. And it's sent by certified mail with return receipt requested, and it is their actual notification of intent that they're going to mine under the property, under that property owner's property, and also that they intend to conduct surveys of the water and structures on that property. So we took this right out of the application. It is just a sample of the kind of letter that would be sent out to initiate this process. There are copies of it if you want to pick one up just for your information. Now, the other thing I want to call your attention is another piece of information back there. It's a big sheet, 8.5 by 14. You can recognize it that way. We have actually excerpted from the mine application the exact description that the mine operator has provided to DEP of how it intends to do the pre-mining surveys of the water. And in that, as that's on this part of the sheet here, and it describes all of the things that will be tested and have to be done in the pre-mining surveys. On the back of this sheet is the coal operator's description for DEP of how they will address any adverse effects that happen to private water supplies. This is for how they will do restoration of water if it is damaged by the mining process. So I'm going to talk about some of those things, but the details of this are on this piece of information, and I would recommend that if you're in a situation where you may be in that circumstance sometime, that you pick this up because it's really the nuts and bolts. And the pre-mining water surveys require 4 distinct samples during wet season and dry season so that wells, and particularly springs, have the right kind of monitoring. Because the quantity of water that is being produced from the well by a pumping test or by the spring by actual measurement is part of what has to be covered in the pre-mining survey. The reason that property owners should agree to the pre-mining water testing survey is that when you fulfill, if this responsibility is fulfilled, then that property owner is in a situation where if the contamination or interruption or reduction of the water supply occurs while the mining is going on, the mine operator is presumed to be responsible immediately for the damage and must provide emergency water supply within 24 hours. That's conditioned upon the fact that that property owner did allow a pre-mining water survey. If the property owner refused the pre-mining water survey and there's a problem with the water, then that can mean the difference between that property owner not getting an immediate emergency supply of water, but the property owner or DEP must actually prove that the adverse effect of the water was caused by the mine. So there can be a time delay and there can also be costs involved. So it's really very important if you are ever faced with the circumstance of a coal operator doing pre-mining survey of your water supplies, you should really adhere to it. Okay, so let's see now. I'm going to skip that. Now, what happens, I do want to mention this, about an emergency water supply, and you will find this on the 8.5 by 14 sheet where they describe what they'll do if the water is interfered with by when the mining is going on. They will within 24 hours provide a emergency supply, which will be a water buffalo. Now, something that's also in that piece of information that you need to know about is that the mine company, if there is adverse effect to the water supply, the mine company must do provided the pre-mining survey has been done on that property, the mining company must provide the emergency supply, but can wait as long as 3 years, up to 3 years, before any permanent restoration is done. That is what it says, and that is a fact, and you need to be at least aware of that. So you could, someone with that in that circumstance could have an emergency kind of water supply, like a water buffalo, for up to 3 years. At that point, something then definitely has to be done. Okay. Now, another thing that is important that you need to understand is that when it's determined that a mine operator is responsible for adverse impacts to a water supply, the water supply restoration includes the requirement for the operator to permanently pay for any increase in operation and maintenance beyond such costs to the property owner that he had prior to the water supply damage. The DEP assures that the operator fulfills this responsibility by requiring them to post a bond in an amount sufficient to provide for payment of the increased cost and perpetuity, forever. Of course, if they have to replace a well, drill a new well, redo a spring or something like that, that cost is the mine operator's responsibility too. The proposed coal operator for the Rustic Ridge mine defines in its permitted application these methods of achieving necessary permanent restoration of damaged water supplies. Deepen the existing well, drill a new well, redevelop an existing spring, develop a new spring, provide for tap into an existing public water supply. Obviously, the coal operator would be responsible for the costs described in modifications to the well or spring, as well as providing a tie-in to the public water supply. And certainly in the case of a tie-in to the public water supply, there would be ongoing additional costs that would also be the responsibility of the coal operator. There is one more method of accommodating a damaged water supply, and there are voluntary agreements that can be achieved between a property owner whose water has been suffered adverse conditions from the mining. And I'm done. I'm almost finished. Okay. So these voluntary agreements they're voluntary, and there's something that the property owner and the coal miner and the coal operator can agree to. DEP is usually involved in overseeing this kind of a process to make sure that it fits within the law. These kind of arrangements might be, for instance, if instead of committing itself to additional costs in perpetuity, the coal operator might offer the property owner a lump sum, or there could be other kinds of monetary arrangements made, but this is voluntary. However, after 3 years, if the adverse condition to the water has been determined to be caused by the mine and has not been restored or replaced within 3 years, the property owner can require the coal operator to purchase the property at a value that the property had before the adverse condition occurred. So, in summary, the circumstances involving possible adverse effects to property owners are important, and I've explained to you why it's necessary to do the pre-mine testing. We'll be around for a while if you have more questions, and we are going to take questions after all the presentations are made. In addition to knowing things about the private water supplies, though, we also need to know have information about the public water supply, because not only the public water supply itself, but the costs involved in extending it and whether it could be extended if necessary are things that we have to know about. There's just one more quick thing I want to say, and that is that there's one more piece of information back there that's really very valuable. It covers much of what I have said, and maybe in a little more understandable manner even. And it's called Surface Owner Rights and Responsibility Summary. It's put out by DEP. We have made, it's a several-page booklet. We've made several copies of it. And if you would prefer not picking one up now, or if we run out, on this long sheet here that I've already described to you, there's an item down here that gives you the web address that you can link to and actually download this information that I just described to you. Now we need to talk about, is Kerry here?
Emily's here.
Good.
Emily's here.
Emily's here. Is Kerry here? There you are, couldn't see you.
We want Emily.
Oh, let's do Emily next, okay? We really all want to hear about the appeal.
There you go.
And Emily's going to introduce to you who she is and why she's in this position here.
Okay, I'll introduce who I am and why I'm here, and apologize for being late. So I guess if you're late, it's good to be late to one of the most beautiful places on earth, right? So thank you all for indulging me a little bit. So my name is Emily Collins. I am the Executive Director and Managing Attorney of Fair Shake Environmental Legal Services, and we represent the Mountain Watershed Association in the appeal that you probably all know about of the Rustic Ridge #1 permit. Permits, I should say, 2 permits that we're challenging. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the process that a permit appeal goes through, and what some of the bases of what some of the objections to the permits are. And I'm happy to take questions. It looks like we're going to do that toward the end, but I'm happy to talk to you guys even afterwards if you have an unanswered question. So there are 2 permits at issue, and they were applied for back in 2013. So it's been some time since the application process started. You guys probably know about a prior permit for the same area, essentially, the Randam permit. So this is a different application, same area, it's subject to a new review, obviously. And the applications that were filed in 2013 were going through the process. The Mountain Watershed Association, as they always are, were very much involved in submitting information to DEP to consider, including some very scientific information, and deciding whether to issue those permits and what conditions might be included in them. And lo and behold, on December 23rd of 2016, so not too long ago, but right before Christmas, both the coal mining activities permit and it's called a NIPDES permit. It's a water quality permit, essentially. Both of those were issued on the same date, and that starts a clock on when the public and organizations can decide whether or not they want to appeal on the basis of what was issued. So there's a 30-day clock that starts when the permit's issued and when you get notice of it, essentially. So Mountain Watershed ended up appealing those permits because, of course, they felt like the scientific information that they had provided was not considered adequately, and that this is an inappropriate location for mining because of the possibility of, the strong possibility of water pollution, of seeps and other discharges that would be unauthorized, so unpermitted, essentially. And there's some other legal reasons that we're basing, our concerns on, but I think on the whole, you can think of it as some serious concerns about the loss of aquatic habitat, the loss of the uses of waterways like Champion Creek that we currently have, going backwards instead of forwards in terms of water quality. Those are the essence of the concerns, and you can even think of them as safety concerns when you're thinking about movement of water between the proposed mine and an abandoned mine. So that's the essence of it, and I know that I went through that pretty quick, so I can probably field a couple of questions if that's okay with you, with everybody up here. So if you guys want to ask me questions about the process, I'm happy to consider those. I think one of the things that Bev had asked me to address is, what happens during the appeal process. It's a long process. So we get to ask questions of the mining company. We get to ask questions of the DEP to see what the basis of their opinions are. And we get our, that information to our own experts, including engineers, ecologists, and hydrologists, so that they can see, what exactly DEP was basing its opinions on and what exactly LCT Energy was basing its opinions on. So that's a process called discovery, and then we end up in front of a judge who gets to hear our evidence and gets to hear DEP's and LCT Energy's evidence and make a decision on whether this permit should exist as it does or at all. So that's the process. Yes, a couple questions.
What's the typical success rate in trying to reverse the approval of one of these permits?
I'm sorry, a typical what?
What's the success rate?
Success rate.
In trying to reverse one of these permits and win an appeal? And how strong do you feel the appeal is of the Watershed Authority?
Oh, well, those are good questions, and I'll say that the success rate for this particular area has been quite good. I mean, there was a mine permit that was denied by DEP in the same area, so that's pretty strong. In terms of, you know, the kind of evidence that we plan to put on, I think it's incredibly strong. I'm you know, working with our experts to make sure that we're considering all of the information that we get, and you know, I like Mountain Watershed. I'm very concerned about the potential impacts of this mine. So I feel very strong about our scientific evidence.
Emily, can you quickly address how the appeal was held before the Environmental Hearing Board, so that everybody understands what kind of legal situation that is? And then
Sure.
Can you talk about what would happen if the appeal is unsuccessful? Is there another route to go?
Oh, sure. Yeah, so I think what you're asking me is to describe what happens in front of the Environmental Hearing Board. So the appeal, and I know it's kind of funny that it's called an appeal because we haven't had a trial yet, right? And usually you appeal something that happens at a trial, but what we're appealing is the DEP's decision, so the Department of Environmental Protection's decisions to issue these permits. And that appeal goes to a body called the Environmental Hearing Board in Pennsylvania. So anytime you're challenging a state-issued environmental permit, that's where you go. And the judges of the Environmental Hearing Board are in the executive level, so they're not in the judiciary. They are called quasi-judicial, just so everybody has their daily civics lesson. So the judges there are appointed, right, by the governor. And the judges that make up the Environmental Hearing Board I consider them quite good. They're very good at hearing specifically scientific evidence, which is, good for environmental matters. And that's why there's a separate body to consider some of these appeals, is so they can be kind of specialized in hearing the evidence. So we go through this process where I told you before, called discovery. We get to file motions back and forth, to see what issues are in and what issues are out, if any. And then we get to present evidence just like a trial, just like you guys have probably seen on TV, except a little less dramatic, probably a little more boring, perhaps. That hearing will go on for days, typically. So we'll present our case to the judge, and LCT and DEP will present their case. We get to cross-examine their experts, just like you guys probably have experienced in watching trials. And then we submit their briefings, really, to the judge based on all the evidence presented, and argue, our case, and the judge makes a decision. So usually the form that ends up in is something called conclusions of law and findings of fact. They're really long documents in numbered paragraphs that are incredibly hard to read, in my opinion. And those findings of fact and conclusions of law can then be appealed. So whichever party, if they feel so inclined, because they lost on a point or many points, or and potentially the entire matter, they can appeal that to the judiciary. So then we hop into the judicial branch of government, potentially. Yeah.
Yeah, how soon can the mine start? Does it have to wait till after the appeal process is completed?
That's a great question. So the question was, can the mine actually start operating right now? And the answer is yes. They have their permits. The permits are, they've been issued. There is something, that can be done if if you feel like there's a threat of imminent harm, meaning, so when I say imminent, I mean it's going to happen very soon. And that's something called a petition for supersedious. It's kind of like a preliminary injunction. So you have to decide, when you're in the appellant's shoes, you have to decide whether that's something worth pursuing. So it's possible to challenge something to stop, right now if you want to.
Do they typically wait till after the mining companies typically wait, or do they?
Do they typically wait until what?
Until after the appeal processes?
No. So just to give you an example, there's several pipelines, that are being proposed, and some of which, have been authorized, and you can file, if you challenge their permits to the Environmental Hearing Board, you can file that petition for supersedious and try to stop it in its tracks so that it can live out the appeal before going into place. And those pipelines, they want to go, and we've seen at least one being started in the face of a petition for supersedious. So
That's why the roads get opened up, filled and counting on it.
okay,
They're building the road back in.
okay. So you're seeing some activity. Yeah.
Are you the legal counsel for the Watershed then?
I am, yes. I am one of several.
Oh, is this all done pro bono, that it doesn't cost
That's a good question. So I won't say that we're going to spend, we certainly won't be spending $2 million on legal fees, but we do offer pro bono services at Fair Shake. It depends on income, and for organizations, we look at their average annual budget. So we try to make legal services affordable. That's our goal. So we assessed Mountain Watershed, in that scheme. And
how much did you assess them?
so we didn't give them a quote. We just adjusted our fee
They
to
got
make it
over $1 million in their coffers, so I'm sure you're not doing it for free.
No, we're not.
The second question is, before it gets to the appeal, doesn't the judge usually order an option of settlement?
Yeah, so there's a mandatory settlement. In every single case, there's a mandatory settlement
Has that
discussion.
happened yet? Or
We just filed yesterday. Yesterday was the deadline for us to make our joint statement about the possibility of pursuing settlement at this stage. And
it hasn't happened yet? It hasn't gone?
we filed our joint statement. It's a public document. You can access it at the Environmental Hearing Board docket.
Can you tell the group what was proposed?
So I am absolutely prohibited. It'd be unethical for me to discuss settlement. But I can tell you that the joint statement said that we intend to proceed with the case. Over here?
Are the appeals open to the public?
They are, yes, and I'm happy to give you guys access to, so it's hard to sometimes find some of the documents that are filed, but I'm happy to give you guys access to the website where, I'll just give you the address, the website where you can access all of those documents, the we file and the LCT files, etc. The actual hearing itself is very much open to the public, and you're welcome to attend. All right, okay. So it's time. Who's next? And I'm happy to answer questions afterwards, guys.
There he is.
All right, Kerry.
I'm going to stand up if it's all right. My name is Kerry Witt. For anyone who doesn't know me, I am the manager with the Indian Creek Valley Water Authority. I have been asked to talk a little bit about the public water supply that's in the mountains here. Just to start off, the Indian Creek Valley Water Authority was formed back in 1965. Started with just a small mining water supply in Melcroft, and we have expanded now since then to cover about 140 square miles, and we have about the equivalent number of lineal miles of distribution facilities. Basically, we go from Donegal Borough, the all the way south to Hinebaugh borough, and basically between the two mountain ridges, the Laurel Ridge and the Chestnut Ridge. So that big rectangular area is what we serve. We do not serve everyone, as it's been noted, but we do have about 2,700 customers. It's a combination of mostly residential and a few commercial customers. For sources of water, the Indian Creek Valley Water Authority has two mountain springs. They're noted as the Grim Spring and the Pritch Spring. They flow from the Laurel Ridge along the top of the ridge, and we capture that water and bring it down into distribution throughout our system. We also have a well that's in Neal's Run. It's at the foothills of the Laurel Mountain. Between those three sources, that covers probably 90% of our needs throughout the entire year. We also have a surface water treatment plant that we draw water from the Mill Run Reservoir in Springfield Township. We use that in the summer months and into the fall when the spring sources that we have normally start to drop in production seasonally, and we have to supplement with some other water, which we have I might also add that that area that I described as our distribution system, we cover 9 municipalities in 2 different counties. Donegal Township, Donegal Borough, Mount Pleasant Township out by Brady's and Cummingswood Park, and then Salt Lake Township, Springfield Township, Stewart Township, all the way to Hinebaugh Borough. And we just go in a little piece into Connellsville Township and Bullskin Township. As far as the cost of our water system, what we charge, our water rates are just a little bit higher than you might see in the city of Pittsburgh or down in Connellsville. Our charge for water is $13 a thousand gallons. And then we have a base charge for residential customers at $12 a month. So depending on how much water a customer may use, all of our customers, residential and commercial, pay the same rate for water at $13 per thousand. But there is higher minimum charges for basically the demand flow that we provide to a customer, which is in the size of the meter that we install. But a residential customer basically is the smallest size meter that we provide, and that is $12 a month. As far as I was asked to talk a little bit about the possible impact of any mine drainage that may enter from the mining area into the tributaries of the Mill Run, Indian Creek. Given the distance that it is between where the portal is going to be and the Mill Run, is that me? The distance between there and the Mill Run Reservoir and all the other tributaries that enter into Indian Creek, it's hard to say what, if any, effect it might be. We have, like I said, a fully functional surface water treatment plant that is compliant with all the safety requirements for producing safe drinking water and putting it for public availability. So I really can't say much more about that. As far as anyone that may be affected by the that may lose their water, that does not currently have our water, we do have the capacity to extend our system to pretty much wherever it is needed in the area. I guess the question is, where is the funding going to come from? I would suppose that if water is taken from a private spring or a well of a property owner within the area, that the mining company would be responsible for replacing that, to include extension of main line to get to the properties, tap, and so forth. But I'm not a legal individual. I don't know if there's much else. I think that I've covered pretty much everything as far as the public water supply goes. We talked about having questions at the end, but whichever I can pass it on.
While you're on your feet, one thing. I seem to recall hearing at one time that the requirements in Donegal Township and in Salt Lake Township for tying into a new portion of the public water supply, whether it's mandatory or not, are different. Can you discuss that?
Yes, I meant to get to that, but it slipped my mind, but I will address that now. The Indian Creek Valley Water Authority does have an agreement with Donegal Township, Donegal Borough, and Mount Pleasant Township, where we enter into Westmoreland County. And that agreement does provide for any extensions that are put in these three municipalities from our system. There is a mandatory participation requirement. That means that if you have improved properties that would front an extension of the main line along one of the roads that might get an extension of distribution along the property, a tap must be installed, paid for, and there is a monthly minimum participation fee that is required. And it is adjustable depending on, I mean, it's a uniform price across my entire water system. It's not a premium just for Donegal or in this area right now, but it would be at the current rate of our water rates. And lastly, the tap-in fees for a residential customer currently is $1,600. But I will add that the Water Authority is looking into, we haven't adjusted our tap-in fee for quite a few years, and we are looking into that, performing a required engineering study to look at that so that we can keep on top of costs of installing a tap and adjust accordingly.
And what about in Salt Lake? Is there mandatory in Salt Lake?
Not in Salt Lake Township, no. It's just in the areas that we entered into long-term loan agreements with Penvest, and the cost incurred to expand the system into Westmoreland County.
So theoretically, if you were in Donegal Township, which is the larger part of this mining area, if it did become necessary to restore a damaged water supply, damaged by the coal mining, with the Indian Creek Valley water, and the cost was taken care of running the line wherever it came from to that property, all properties that line passed to get there would mandatorily need to then tap in and pay a fee, whether they use the water or not.
Correct, with the exception that they have to be improved properties. There must be a structure built on there. If it's just straight vacant property, no.
Thanks.
One quick question. If there's a need for expanded water for the mine area, would you have enough water source to be able to supply that?
I believe so. I believe so. We have excess capacity now, and given the footprint of the mining area and the number of residential customers, I believe we do have that capacity, yes.
Okay, shall we move on?
One question here. If it's mandatory to tap into this and they come to your property and your water hasn't been impacted by the mine, who will pay that fee?
You will.
I mean, you wouldn't have to do it unless the mine impacts other people's water, but if they don't impact yours.
You have a good question in that if a mile down the road, someone loses their water as a result of the mining activity, and there's a dozen people between the existing end of the line and where they have to get to, if they have to put the cost to take it all the way to that far end person, then that puts basically everybody else at requirement to tap in and have a tap installed, payment made, and a monthly participation.
But don't you think
But the mine would pay for that cost on that person that's impacted?
The far end, yes.
Who would pay for the people in between?
You would.
But what do you think would be the chances of the company? They would go first to try to drill new wells before they pay to run city.
That's a hypothetical, but I don't want to get
So
into.
that's not, I mean, it's a hypothetical, but it's your question is really a possible way of being able to cost. Because the coal company's going to spend money to drill a well over here, they're not going to, they're going to try to go the cheapest route.
Well, I think one of the things that we kept in mind when we were trying to put the information together for tonight was, we're not trying to draw any conclusions about anything or predict that anything specific is going to happen, but we want to explore all the alternatives and possibilities and let people know what the information is about that. And now, Mike, it's your turn.
Good evening. Thanks for coming, folks. Well, my name is Mike Terretti. My wife and I live off of Helen School Road, and I'm a concerned citizen about the mine. One of the reasons is because the surface permit area for this mine adjoins the back of my property, so I'm right next to the mine. It's going to be right behind my house. You may ask, what do I have to add this evening? Probably not a whole lot. But I think I understand the Department of Environmental Protection, particularly the mining program. I worked for the mining program for 32 years. In the last 9 years of my career, I was the director of the entire program for the entire state of Pennsylvania. So I have a little bit of understanding of how the Pennsylvania program operates. So, just a couple of things that I want to talk about right now are notices that you're going to receive. And I think Marty touched upon these in her remarks. But there are several different types of permits that you're going to receive, either prior to mining or during mining. Most of them, I think, are probably going to be prior to mining for these. The pre-mining survey, which Marty talked about. There's one called a pre-blast survey, potentially, that you may get, and a 6-month notice. Now, I have to emphasize that when you get these notices and the company wants to come and look at your house and sample your water supply, please allow them to do that. Because the way the law is written and the way that the regulations are written, it's necessary for them to be able to test the water and to look at your home to see if there's any damage or that there isn't any damage to your home at the present time. Because if you don't allow them, then you have to prove that your home was damaged or your water supply was damaged. The department will not do it, and the company doesn't have to do it. So it's really important that you allow the company to test your water supply, take pictures of your home if it's necessary for them to do that, and that you get copies from the company of all of the results of the pictures that they may take or the sample results that they may take. Now, I mentioned the pre-blast survey. That's one you probably haven't heard this evening. That would probably be around the surface permit, the surface area of this permit. because there's two portions of this permit. One is above ground, and that's the area where their tipple is going to be, where their entries are going to be into the mine. The rest of it is the underground portion of the mine, which covers nearly 3,000 acres. There will be some other areas later on, potentially for fans or boreholes down into the mine. And they'll have to get those permitted and bonded as well. But they may be using explosives, particularly to put in the shafts for any of the fans. And they're not like a typical fan that you may have in your home, a ceiling fan or a box fan in the window. These are pretty big and they make a lot of noise because they're moving thousands of cubic feet of air into or out of the mine. So, but the pre-blast survey is for the use of surface explosives. This is not a typical shaft mine that we would see in a regular, a different type of mining operation. But they will do a box cut into the hillside down below where our home is off of Helen School, and their entry is on county line. But they'll do, basically it's a strip mine entry into the hillside, and they'll run their shafts in from there. So they'll probably use some explosives potentially to get that opened up, and they have to do a pre-blast survey to everybody's home that is within 1,000 feet of that particular permitted area, that area. So if you're within that 1,000-foot area in where the surface mine is, and they do use explosives, they're going to do a pre-blast survey. And again, any of these notices that you receive, please allow them to do the surveys and take the pictures and test your water supply. Because it's really important that you have that information to protect you later on down the road as mining progresses, if the appeal is not successful in this particular case.
Alrighty, then let's move on to, Mark, you have some things to say about real estate?
Wait a minute. Emily has a question.
Can you address whether they should do additional sampling beyond what DEP does?
They can, yeah. It's possible if you want to do it or have additional sampling done, that you could do that from a private lab. You could have it done. You can also ask the company if they would potentially sample your well or your spring. You may also want to ask the department, request that the department make your well or your spring a monitoring point. If that's the case, then your well or your spring would become a point that the company would have to sample every quarter. And that gives a valid picture, like I said, every quarter of what your water supply is like from the start and as it progresses through mining. If there's any impact to your water supply, it would start to show up in those quarterly monitoring reports. And you can ask that your sample become a monitoring point, and you could get those samples either from the department, the information concerning those, or you can have them submitted by the company to you. But it's imperative that you get copies of everything that the company is sampling so that you have that background information in your water supply.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Mark Krystyniak. I'm a realtor from Mount Pleasant. My family owns property on County Line Road. I am the owner of Howard Hanna Hometown Real Estate in Mount Pleasant. I've been in the real estate business since 2001. When I heard about what was happening on the mountain, and I live in Mount Pleasant, and my mom still lives on County Line, I was really concerned for property values for all you folks that have property up here, because we have over 200 acres on County Line ourselves. I went to the National Association of Realtors and asked them for what determines negativity on selling homes. And the association gave me a list of about 10 things that causes negative effect on property values. 1 is congestion, 2 is traffic, 3 is noise in relationship to manufacturing facilities, of the high incidence of air pollution that are caused by them. Road demolition, if you want to call it, to the infrastructure. The amount of traffic that goes in and out of a projected site. If you look at all those factors, we have a serious problem because we have all those factors of what's going to happen if the mine actually gets up and running, if this lady can't pull off the appeal process. Well, how much is that going to affect my house, Mark? Can't tell you that. I can just tell you this, that the Association of Realtors said it could affect you from 5% up to 20%, depending on how big of a factor it is. If you have a house that's 30 feet off the road, and you've got 200 coal trucks a day going by that, you're probably going to be over 20%, okay? As a realtor, I'm going to bring a person to your house to sell it, and there's coal trucks whizzing by, back and forth, and they have little kids. Do you think they're going to buy that house? No, okay? So I did a little more research, and I decided to contact somebody that I know in Tennessee that has the mines and everything else in their area, and I asked them, what do you think the big concerns are? They gave me 2 pages of stuff that can affect your property values, but I'm only going to pick like 6 of them and explain them pretty quickly. Road maintenance. The biggest thing is road maintenance is our roads were not designed to have that amount of traffic on them, with that amount of weight, with that amount of people. You have to worry about the respiratory problems of the coal dust, of the diesel fuel, of all the stuff that's going to happen with the opening up of a mine and going through all the stages to get it in and out. Contamination and destruction of wells and springs. We've talked about that all night. Let me explain to you in real estate in terms. When somebody sells a house, they normally have to, if you have a private water source, you have to get what is done as a flow test. What a flow test is how much water comes out of your tap for a specific period of time. Normally, a bank will not loan money to anyone unless it can produce 4 gallons a minute for 30 minutes continually. If you have water problems caused by mining, you're never going to reach that. I know properties in Bear Rocks, and there's people here that live in Bear Rocks. They have flows of 2 and 3 gallons a minute, and they can't get people to buy the houses because they can't get a mortgage to buy it, okay? Because they say that it's not enough flow. We're talking about selling your house. You want to get the hell out of town because now you're going to have a mine here. Well, you have to fill out what is known as a seller's disclosure. On a seller's disclosure, one of the big things says, is there any projected mining, or is there any mining that affects your area, your property, or a property near you? As soon as you check it off, yes, that there is, a lot of people are not going to want to look at your property. Okay? The water tables, it lowers the water tables, you'll have that issue. Okay, and one big thing is people who live near coal mines have a higher than normal rate of cardiopulmonary disease, COPD, hypertension, lung disease, and kidney disease. So when you got young kids that are there and they're out running around in the yard, parents aren't going to want that to happen to their kids. And just the sheer number of the projected vehicles is staggering of how much that they're expecting this to do. Finally, I just want to say that water conditions will affect your purchase price dramatically because we need water all the time. This gentleman has a great system of having city water for you, but it's very costly. But it's not costly as what it is in town. He told you, I think the tap-in fee is $1,300 bucks? $1,600. In Westmoreland County, the Municipal Water Authority of Westmoreland County, it's $2,750 for a water tap. Okay? And everyone, if a main line is extended, no matter where you are in the Municipal Authority of Westmoreland County, you must tap in, pay the fee, and you don't have to use the water, but they're still going to charge you a minimum fee. So, the adverse thing of the water condition, if you have a water problem, and I heard someone say that they would come in here and they would buy your property from you if they couldn't adjust or correct the water situation. But they're giving you the purchase price of what that house was worth prior to the contamination, not prior to the mine coming in. That's a big difference. You could have a situation where your house was worth $200,000. Now the mine comes in, you lost 15%. That's what they're going to give you. They're going to give you the 15% less of what it was on what the value of the home was before you had the mines. So if anybody has any questions afterwards for me, I'd be more than happy to answer what I know. And if I don't know it, I have a good legal team that can help figure it out. Thank you.
Thanks.
Oh, yeah. Oh, can I say one more thing? I would invent, if before you go any farther into what's happening with the mine, I would get an appraisal of your property now for your own benefit, for your own protection. Okay? What does an appraisal cost on a residential property? Approximately $250 to $350. The reason why I'm saying that is if you have a major problem down the pike, you can say, look, my house was worth this then, and now it's not worth that amount. You might have a legal battle for yourself to protect yourself.
I'm back. I want to talk a little bit about the permit. A few weeks ago, the mining company had a meeting here. We talked about the permit and things that they did to get this permit issued. That's different than the Randam permit that was denied by the department about 20 years or so ago. They talked about, leaving coal in place in certain areas, not mining in areas of shallow cover. I think they said that they eliminated areas that were 200 feet or less of cover from the mining permit, and some other things that they weren't going to do, like retreat mining. I don't know if everybody knows what retreat mining is, but after they have driven all of the entries into the mine, and the coal is exhausted from their permit, they back out of the mine and they start taking, what they call robbing the pillars as they come back out. And they take additional coal out, leaving less support in the mine. So they said they weren't going to do any retreat mining. But the thing is that the permit can be revised. They have a permit now, and it says certain things in that permit. But they can revise that permit to take those things out or add different things into it. Like they say they're going to do a room and pillar mine, which is kind of like the rooms in your house, and not going to do any long wall mining. But the permit could be changed, very easily to do long wall mining, and they would be allowed to do that because there's no prohibition that says they can't do long wall mining in this mine. It's just that the company did not submit it in that manner. There could be other changes that are done. They could sell this mine. They could do exactly what they said they're going to do, and not do any retreat mining. Leave the coal in place in certain areas, then turn around at the end of the life of the mine for them and sell it to another company who may come in, revise the permit, and do all of those things that this company said they wouldn't do. So it's possible that the mine could be changed. I'm not saying that it will be, but it is a potential that those things could happen. The water loss and contamination. There's been some discussion about water loss and contamination, particularly of springs and wells in an area. We also talked a bit about the public water supplies. A lot of people think that because they have public water, that they're free and clear. That things aren't going to happen to their water supply because it's a public water supply. And Kerry talked about that, you know, and he has to meet certain standards to provide water to the people that are on that water supply. However, the mining company is going to be treating mine water, and that mine water is discharged into the receiving streams. Oh yeah, there's a lot of receiving streams that come into the supply that Kerry may use for the public water supply, but that doesn't mean it won't impact that supply. It could be just a subtle change in the water that he has to add more chemicals to provide the clean water that we have become accustomed to. If he has to do that, he may have to increase his costs because his chemical costs, etc., have risen. You know, he can't absorb all of that and continue to provide clean drinking water to the public. He's going to have to pass those costs on to the public. So, you know, as a recipient of the public water supply here, you know, I would have to pay an increased cost. The other thing that was asked was, you know, if a water supply, which would be a well or a spring, is either contaminated or interrupted or diminished by the mining company, what happens? Now, it has to be proven that the mining company impacted that water supply. Because if it's not proven that they did, then the homeowner is responsible for replacing his own water supply. And if they go to the public water supply, and for some reason it's agreed that they will extend the public water line, it's not that homeowner that's going to pay for that. They can't afford it. Because it costs quite a bit of money, I believe, to increase, or to extend that water supply line to the homes in the area. That cost, I believe, and you can correct me, Kerry, if I'm stating something incorrect here, but the cost of doing some of that would be borne by the other people that are using the water supply, public water supply. So, and as you said, asked Gerald about the tap-in fee. You know, if they have to extend it for just one person, which I doubt that they would do, but it's possible. You know, anybody else along that line would have to pay their own individual tap-in fees and any other fees that would be mandated by the water company. Questions?
Yes, Mike, hi. For those of us that live over the 1,000-foot radius of the mine, or if we lose our water supply, is there any recourse for us if we have to fight the whole company on our own?
Right, that would be on your own. The department will not do anything about that because you're outside that threshold area. That's a 1,000-foot area outside of the permitted area. If you lose your water or some damage happens to your home, you're on your own. The regulations do not cover that, and the department won't do anything for you. The other thing that was mentioned potentially was private agreements between you as a homeowner and the mining company. I would urge you not to enter into a private agreement with the mining company, but to go through the department and have it recorded that way. If you go through a private agreement with the mining company, the department will not enforce that agreement if something goes haywire, because it's not a legal agreement in their eyes. Yeah, it's between you and the mining company. So if something goes wrong, and you have you can't get the mining company to agree to what it is that you think is wrong, you have to take legal action on your own. If it's an agreement that's sanctioned by the department will fight the mining company along with you, and they'll take care of the legal appeal. So I would urge you not to go into a private agreement with the mining company if that type of issue would arise.
Hey, Mike, one thing. Would you speak to, just in case anybody doesn't understand, the difference of surface support and the potential for subsidence between room and pillar and long wall? Just to make sure people understand that.
Well, yeah, there's a major difference between longwall mining and room and pillar. In room and pillar, they drive entryways and they use roof bolts primarily, but in certain other areas they may use timbers to support the roof. And they leave also pillars of coal in between those rooms that they mine out. In longwall, you have a machine that takes a panel out, and that panel may be 1,000 feet wide, that runs for, maybe a mile or 2 miles, depending on how big the permit is, that leaves no support in place. They don't do any bolting after they've taken the coal out or anything. It is allowed to let the property above where they take the coal out to subside immediately. So if there's any houses, any structures or anything above that panel, as it subsides, it's going to damage that structure, guaranteed. I've seen it happen too many times not to believe that it would. Some of the places were damaged considerably, others much less, but there was damage done to all the homes. So the support for a ruined pillar mine is much greater than the support for a longwall panel.
Mike, question. This brings up subsidence insurance. Should people be getting?
That's my next topic. Thank you very much. Subsidence insurance is something that folks may be concerned about. Technically, while this mine is active and in progress, the operator has to provide insurance or bonds to cover subsidence events should they occur as the mine is active. Once the mine is completed mining and they release the subsidence bonds, then it's up to the homeowner to provide insurance coverage for subsidence events should they occur. Your homeowner's insurance that you have now, the liability insurance that you have in your home, will not cover subsidence damage. So if you think that you have enough of insurance based on your current homeowner's insurance, it will not cover that. And I spoke to my contact, and this is out of the California District Mining Office, and unfortunately he's going to retire at the end of the month. But he told me that the cost of the insurance is fairly minimal. And at this point, the law was changed a few years back that some of your local insurance agents are allowed to sell subsidence insurance. Some of them do, some of them don't. It just depends on the agent himself, because he may not think that he gets enough money to do it. But $100,000 worth of insurance on your home, subsidence insurance, is $57.50. So it's relatively cheap. $200,000 would be like $107.50. If you take the amount of insurance that you want, like $300,000 or $400,000, take the 3 or the 400 divided by 2 and add $750 to it. $7.50. That's what the cost of the insurance would be. They will insure a home up to $500,000. So that is what the subsidence insurance is for. Now, it's possible that even though the company right now has to cover any possible subsidence damage to your home, that there's potential that if an appeal is filed by the company and the department loses the appeal, that you would be out in the cold. You wouldn't get any money from the company to repair your home. You could potentially buy subsidence insurance while the mining is going on, and if the department were to lose their appeal, the insurance would cover any damage to your home if the department felt that the damage was caused by subsidence. Question?
On Calvary Church, when you say about buying subsidence insurance, we were denied. State Farm, they tried, DEP, because they said there's no mine within any distance.
Okay.
So now, what do I do to get my insurance?
If this mine is going to come under your home, then when they undermine your home, you can purchase the insurance. What they've looked at are the old maps of any deep mines in this area, and they're saying that there is no deep mine under your home at the present time. Right, they won't, if there's no mine under your home, they won't provide insurance, because what they're looking at is the fact that can subsidence damage occur to your home? And the answer to that is no. And if that won't occur, then they can't sell you the insurance. Now, they've been wrong. There was a home here not too long ago in Latrobe that subsided, and they thought that there weren't any deep mines under that home as well. So the Malcroft area potentially right now, since that area has been mined. I think there are 3 or 4 mines in that area that, have been completed for years. Any homes over those Melcroft mines or the White Mine should potentially have subsidence insurance because, the potential for subsidence occurring is there. So, it's obviously up to the homeowner if they want to purchase that in an area where the mine has been, the area has been mined out. But unfortunately, the department determined that there wasn't a mine under your home.
A lot of people are gonna have this issue.
Yeah.
When they try to go and they do insurance.
Well, if this mine is going to come under your home, you would be allowed to purchase the insurance in the future. So, because this home will take the coal out, the support potentially out from under your home, and that potential for subsidence could occur. So, yes.
Are we gonna do the AMD efforts now?
No, we're gonna wait a minute, because I have a question. Actually, I have 2. I'm sorry. One question for you, Mike. Most of the instances of subsidence that we hear about today, what kind of mining was done? If it was not longwall, what was it?
Most of those from the old mines are old room and pillar mines. Yes. And, yeah, usually room and pillar mines will not subside real quickly. It'll be years later after the mining's completed that room and pillar mines will subside because of the supports that they do put in, because you have been in and out of the mines for a long period of time.
And one question for Kerry Witt. Kerry, the water that is under and in those deep mines around Melcroft, it's groundwater, right? Some of it's groundwater. Is it contaminated?
I can't answer that question.
Why did you have to put all those water lines in?
Well, in Melcroft, where our system started, the mining company that was there from early in the 1900s, they provided water from the Pritch Spring, brought it down cross country all the way to Melcroft, and supplied all of their company homes with water.
My question is, if the groundwater is contaminated by a deep mine, can you drill a well into it and get good water? You don't have to answer that.
I wouldn't think so.
Sorry.
So, the second that you have a concern that your water has been affected by mining, you should inform the department. That's step 1. I think it's correct. Before signing anything, consider getting legal counsel. And there is a presumption area where if the mine is within a certain area related to your water supply, then it is presumed that the mine caused the contamination or loss of your water supply. That doesn't mean you automatically are going to get a replacement water supply. That means there's a presumption that can be rebutted. So the mine can come in and try to say, actually, here are the reasons that we didn't cause it. So never sit on your laurels when a water supply replacement issue comes up, okay? You need to be always aware of what's happening and part of the process. We have many, many water supply replacement cases on our docket, and the department doesn't always find for the landowner, so be careful. Do you want me to? Oh, you got it.
Okay, it looks like we're back. My name is Carla, and I am the project manager / field technician for the Mountain Watershed Association. What I'm going to talk about today is the abandoned mine drainage treatment systems that we have, how much they cost, and what it costs to do some of that remediation work when the mine drainage is coming out. First off, mine drainage treatment systems are really only a Band-Aid. They're masking the problem, they're not really fixing it. Mine drainage will continue to come out of the mine into the mine hole. That's where the treatment systems are needed to take the mine and treat the water before discharging it to the stream. So they're $1 million Band-Aids that last for eternity. This is the Indian Creek watershed. Everywhere that you can see one of those little coal buckets, that's where we have a treatment system already, or we have one currently being installed. The project area that we're talking about with the mine is in the upper corner of Upper Indian Creek, Champion Creek, and Minnow Run. That's the general area. So you can see it's in the headwaters of the watershed, and any impacts will be felt all the way downstream. Indian Creek already has 17.4 miles of stream that is impacted by mine drainage, coming from 130 discharges. So there's already a lot of mine drainage here. And mine drainage, obviously, it's going to decrease, has an effect on the water quality, aquatic habitat, recreational opportunities, and we already mentioned some of the cost of treating for drinking water. To the residents, again, you have your property damaged, lower property values. You're decreasing your drinking water, and it's aesthetically unpleasing. Who wants to see a stream running the color of dreamsicle? And again, these treatment systems are not cheap. They're multi-million-dollar treatment systems, and then in order to maintain them for eternity. This is the Millcroft mine drainage treatment system. It was built in 2011, $1.1 million. That's just to get it on the ground. Annually, MWA spends $23,000 in doing monitoring and maintenance at this site. This is the water chemistry before we put the treatment system in, and now, what's coming out now. So you can see the treatment system is doing its job. It's getting the water from a pH of 5.9 back up to a 7.76. The acidity, 310.9 milligrams per liter, down to 0. Challenges that we have managing some of these systems. This system, we've had problems with the magnesium bed. The flow is too high coming into it. The backbone, the sediment pond has been broken. The caps on the pipes, when they originally put them in, they glued them on, leaving us no access for maintenance and cleaning the pipes. The valves for flushing is buried by vegetation and we can't find it. Vandalism, we've had vandalism to the fence posts, we've had ATVs around the trail in the past as well. Okay, this is the kelp treatment system. It was built in 2004. In 2014, we had to do almost an entire rehabilitation of the treatment system. Between the establishing of the original treatment system and the rehab, $4.7 million. And again, we spend about $24,000 annually on maintenance and monitoring. Again, the water chemistry, we're looking at iron 54 to 84 milligrams per liter. It's down to less than 0.5%. That's where we want it. We want it less than 1. Management at this site, vandalism or even sabotage by some instance. We've had collapsing boreholes. We've had clogged pipes, broken valves. Obviously, the age of the system required a rehabilitation. And also the discharge in the treatment systems alone. They're acidic discharges, so they're attacking the metal pipes that are in the treatment systems. So the discharge is attacking the treatment system. The Sagamore treatment system. This was our first treatment system. It was built in 2001. It was actually 2 discharges, one alkaline, one acidic. They worked together to treat each other. That was before. Now, and that maintenance of that site is $12,200 annually, but that's going to go up. You can see some of the flow and where it says before S2, those are more like the numbers that we're getting now. What we have at this site is we either have a new discharge or a change in a discharge because the chemistry has changed. So we're looking at a discharge that's coming out. If anyone's walking down the Indian Creek Valley Trail, if you're coming from Indian Head, right after you pass the treatment systems on the right, you'll see that orange water just seeping out of the ground. That's this new discharge. This discharge that's seeping out has very high aluminum, very high iron. The original discharge didn't have that much aluminum coming out. So this is the chemistry of the discharge change. And this does happen from time to time in the mine. So that's another challenge that we have in treating the systems. The Galentine treatment system, it was originally built in 2003. It was also had to be redesigned in 2008 because of a blowout that had occurred. That between the two constructions for that one, we're looking at about a little over $1 million for that treatment system, and about $14,000 annually that we spend on monitoring it. Again, you can see the water chemistry for the treatment system. It's doing its job. It's really getting it down there. Management challenges at this site, like I mentioned, we had mine blowout, so they had to totally redesign the treatment system and reinstall it. We've had clogged pipes. We had, again, a change in the water chemistry, and also when they put the treatment system in, there was no overflow for the system. So in the picture, you can see that the water is just flowing over the banks of the treatment system and down the hill. Now we have went out and hand dug an overflow so that this doesn't happen anymore. This is the Rondale site. This is a discharge that we recently got a Growing Greener grant, and we are in the process of installing a treatment system there. We are working with Remediate and GAI, and we're in the permitting phase of this project. This discharge has very high iron and very high aluminum. So we're trying to use some new technology with this discharge. That's why we're in the permitting phase for it. This will be something that's done for the first time in, I think, in the United States. The Marcelino site. This one is, we've paid $274,000 just to acquire the property in order to do the project. They've just completed phase 2 in this past fall, $550,000. And that was just to install the first part, the installation of a low wall drain. Now, at this site, we are monitoring it on a monthly basis for the DEP. And once we have all that data done, or after we collect for a year, the DEP is going to take that data and see if we need to design another phase of the project. So it takes at least a year for them to get the water quality data in order to make a design for the treatment system. And you can see the parameters of before and then phase 1 for the low wall drain. We're already seeing great improvements in the iron at the site. Now this is only on a limited number. As I said, they just completed this late fall. We only have about 2 or 3 rounds of sampling, but we'll continue to do that every month for the next year. The permapress mine drainage treatment site. This one's called permapress because actually it's a discharge with no iron in it. It was built for $170,000, and it's roughly about $8,500 for us to maintain. And again, the water chemistry you can see is coming out where we would want it. Acidity less than 2, iron less than 0.02, aluminum less than a half point, and pH is 7.4. Management challenges that we've had at this one. We've also had clogged pipes at this one, where someone actually had to wait out to unclog the pipe. We've had to try a kayak out there to unclog the pipe. We've had maintenance issues on the road where the road has subsided. And we also have a bell siphon that in order to be cleaned, we actually have to ventilate it in order for somebody to go down into it. So there's definitely a lot of challenges with these treatment systems and maintaining them. And what do these treatment systems give us? It could give us a better visually improvement of the water. We're not seeing the orange stream of the past. Chemical improvements, our pHs are up. We're showing the good chemistry coming down the stream, which is providing for the biological improvement that we're seeing. We're seeing fish. We are seeing a good, healthy population of macroinvertebrates coming back into the watershed. This also increases the quality of life for area residents. It gets people who want to go down and visit the streams, be out there, go fishing, and it may bring in tourism dollars with the fishing industry and boating. Just to give you an idea of our macroinvertebrate sampling, this was from this past year. We've got a lot of streams on that attaining list. We just got a couple over there on the not attaining, and we're still working on those. We have the treatment systems, and the new Meyer Run, both the Marcelino and the Rondell site, our treatment systems are going to be in that watershed, so hopefully a few years down the road we'll get that one over to that attaining side as well. So, what is the cost of remediation? I know I threw a lot of numbers out at you for the cost of the treatment systems. Here's the total. We've spent $7.5 million, well, almost 7.6, on installation of treatment systems so far. Those are the ones that are actually done on the ground, complete. With a $90,756 annually. That's each year. That's how much we spend on monitoring and maintenance of the treatment systems. And then down below, we have the Marcelino and the Rondell sites. Those are our two that are currently in development phases. We're looking between the land purchase and the cost of installation, $1.1 million. That number there, that last figure, does not include any of the water sampling, any of the maintenance, and the monitoring that's going to be required. That's just getting those systems built and functioning. A little bit of money, just a little. And just to give you an idea of what it would be, 15 years, just for maintenance, 15 years, and just on the current systems, not those two new ones, $1,361,340. That's the cost of remediation. And I believe the slide before this is available on the resource table if anybody would like to take those figures home and look at them. They're pretty significant.
What do you come up with $7 million? You're not selling hoagies on the corner. Where do you get the money?
All $7 million is, most of it is tax dollars and grants. Some of that money, I didn't say that it was all MWA money. A lot of that money is tax dollars from the DEP for the treatment systems coming in.
Now what happens if that dries up? It's all bad water.
Have a bad environment, huh?
If it dries up, if the mine pool dries up,
If the funding dries up.
if the money dries up, yeah, then we're going to go back to having those dreamsicles. That's why we don't want the new mine. We don't want to have we don't want another discharge.
And why we need a good, strong DEP in Pennsylvania. Before we move on for your questions, a couple things. Would those of you who own properties that are in the footprint of this Rustic Ridge mine, raise your hands. We're just curious to see how many property owners, raise them high so we can have an idea of that. And of the property owners who live in that area, how many of you have your own private water supply? You're not on the public. How many are in that category? A number. Yeah. Well, we know it's a significant problem to consider. I think if the resource people come back up here, we'll entertain questions. I think, Emily, aren't you going to handle the questions? Where are you? And why don't those of you who don't have questions want to go back and look at the resource information, see what you might like to pick up, and pick up some cookies too. And we want to say that. Get closer to the mic, Martin. Okay. And we want to say that we're pleased that all of you took the time and effort to come out and listen to the information that we have gathered together. And we hope that you feel that you have had some questions answered and you know a little bit more about the situation that we're dealing with.
Yes.
You're saying all of them real estate value have.
Yes. Hold on, they're gonna get you a mic so that everyone can hear your question.
You were saying about what would happen to real estate values and everything. Well, right now, they're cutting the road back, County Line Road.
That is true.
And how are we affected because people who live along there?
That will affect, everyone knows already that the permits have been approved and they're already putting the road back into the site. So it's already gonna have a negative effect for people who wanna buy those properties on that county line corridor because they know what's coming.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
And that's what gets you about these permits, supposedly, everything hasn't been approved, and here we are appealing stuff that hasn't been approved, yet they're in there building or working.
No, it has been approved.
Right.
Everything's been approved. It's just that we're trying to appeal it to get it out of there.
Right.
But they've all been approved. They have the legal right to go in there and start dozing all they want to.
All right.
Yes.
You people gotta remember too, they not only got their permit, but they put in for discovery. This isn't, if they go through with this is not the end. I think they can handle it. They have already put in for discovery. Cutting down the mammoth park and everything. So it's not gonna only affect you people, it's gonna go further.
Before we go on with this session, I just want to make one comment. I'd like to thank all you all, ladies and gentlemen, up front that came here, volunteered your time for doing this community. I want to thank you very much.
In approving these permits, how did the DEP and the mining companies address the previously expressed concerns about the high volume of water being discharged in the Indian Creek and also the high volume of truck traffic?
Water. Do you want to take that? Okay. So your question was about how did they address the prior denied permit, right? And how did they address truck traffic?
Yeah, the concerns that were expressed in both those categories.
Well,
Not
yeah.
the truck traffic and high volume of water discharge in the Indian Creek.
High volume of water.
High volume. Yeah, so part of the concern that Mountain Watershed has expressed in their communications to DEP and now in the appeal is that we think it's going to be a very high volume of water, creating flooding conditions and therefore creating, greater pollution in Champion Creek and downstream. So we don't think it has been addressed. As far as truck traffic goes,
That's not DEP, that's PADEP.
yeah, so DEP will disclaim most interest in truck traffic. So it's typically a local government question or a state government question, like PennDOT. But one of the points in our appeal relates to noise, which I think was brought up earlier. So a noise assessment is something that we are very concerned about, but not necessarily the finer point that you're making about truck traffic. Yeah. Oh, that's something.
We do have a paper in the back about the truck traffic.
Okay, great.
But unfortunately, we have not been able to pinpoint, because the company has not stated with any certainty which way they plan to go.
I think it's my understanding that they bonded County Line Road.
Well, then maybe they're gonna go on County Line Road.
Well, here's my question about County Line Road. I live on County Line Road,
we live up by Brown Cemetery, if anybody knows. And you'll see the pro coal mines in our front yard, the signs. Because I worked in the coal mines for 38 years. And I was able, fortunately, to retire with them. And they provided me with a good living and good jobs. As a couple concerns that I have is if you lose your appeal, that truck traffic's all going to go out County Line Road. That's 90 trucks in and 90 trucks out every day. My question is there an alternative way, if you lose your appeal, that those truck traffics could have went straight out to 31 and protected those 50 houses that live on County Line Road? Well, we don't know. I don't know. Was there an alternative way that they could have went out?
It doesn't matter, 50 homes on County Line or 35 on Ellen School or wherever, there's still going to affect homes.
Couldn't they come out right from the mine, right through the valley, right over onto 31?
No, I think that's a question to pose to them, not to me.
Well, yeah, and if now here's how I look at it. If I own this property and they're putting a deep mine over here, and I care about my neighbors, and there's 180 trucks going to go out County Line Road today, I would consider, as a good neighbor, to let them run across my property, go straight out to 31, because if I was so bullheaded that I wouldn't do that, and an accident happened and somebody got killed on County Line Road, knowing that I couldn't let the coal trucks go across my property out there, I don't think I could live with myself every day.
Are you targeting a resident because they're not letting you go across the...
No, I'm not saying, I'm saying it for my own, my peace of mind.
Do we have any questions? Any more questions for the panelists?
I have one question for Mike.
Wait.
I have a question for Mike.
Okay, but there are other people who have questions, and you've already asked for your four.
Mike's
Take
been
a
in
break.
charge of DEP for how many years? Do you have no faith in your system?
I have a lot of faith in my system. It's just that if you look at this particular mining operation and the history of this area, there are 4 mines down dip of this mine that produce acid mine drainage, and they're all in the same coal seam that this mine is. To think that this mine will not produce acid mine drainage and provide additional pollution to the streams in our area is ridiculous. And I think the department erred in issuing this permit.
You would have denied it?
Yes. I would not have reviewed this application.
You would not have reviewed it at all.
No.
Thank you.
But how old are the mines that are discharged? How old?
Doesn't make a difference how old they are.
Yes, it does.
No,
Because they're all up there.
They're down there.
Well, now ultimately, ask, what will this community benefit from this mine?
I think it would first off, it would provide a bunch of jobs for people.
I think you're wrong.
Oh, you
I think you're wrong.
Yeah, you better put your kids through college, working in a knick-knack shop.
This mine is up dip
Someone has to take
of the Bell property than the white mine.
Yeah, but they're mining down.
Doesn't matter. That water's gonna fill up that mine. It's gonna come out someplace. It's not gonna be contained in the mine. What? Every deep mine that I know of has a discharge. Every one of them.
That's why they seal it.
They don't. I don't care if they seal it or not. Every mine, regardless of how it's sealed or when it's sealed, has a discharge.
Well, then there shouldn't be any permit issue. None.
Well, that's our point, part of it anyway. Excuse me. So I'm Beverly Braverman, the executive director, and since other people have questions and we are only here for another 10 minutes, I would like to know, is there anyone else who would like to ask our panel any question that is pertinent to gathering information? Do you need this?
I don't think that's working.
It's not turned on.
It's not working. What's the need here? Okay.
If the judge looked at what happened in Elcroft and what's going on now, how can any judge not, do this appeal? And I'm a chemist, I've worked for mine safety of mines 23 years, I've tested water for 10 years, and if you're a miner, how about
affects your lungs and the coal dust and everything else. Okay? Yeah, I'm pretty upset about this. It's going to affect our house and land and health and your children as far as education.
Yeah, I can absolutely understand why you'd be upset with this, and you're absolutely right. And we want to make sure that the judge does look at the evidence from the prior mine. Absolutely. And he has not had the opportunity to do that yet, so we will make sure once we get that opportunity to put it before him.
There was also a petition for mining that was done in this area. That petition was denied.
Unfortunately, that petition was denied by the department because a small portion of the area that the petition covered could not be approved. And the deputy secretary at the time said, if we can't approve the entire petition, deny it. You know, and of several thousand acres that were in the petition, only, like I said, a small area could not be approved. If it had been, we wouldn't be here today because the majority of this coal would have been designated as unsuitable for mining, which I believe that it is because of the history of acid production from this coal seam. And I believe that it will eventually emanate someplace on the surface and go into our receiving stream. I truly believe that. Any other questions?
I just want to know how many approximate jobs this mine would produce.
I can't answer that because I'm not with the coal company. I don't even remember what the coal company said. How many jobs that this would be in this mine?
Around 200.
It has changed, so we're not addressing that.
And that's dependent on whether this operation goes into I don't know, full production, and it's also dependent on whether or not they have a market for the coal and how much that market demand is, whether it'll ever get to that point.
This mine going to be a union?
Don't know.
No.
No, not a union mine.
You said about if your well's outside that 1,000-foot mark to have it monitored. How do you go about doing that?
If you're outside the 1,000 feet of the permit?
Correct.
I don't know if the department will require them to monitor it since you are outside that area. But if you want to try and have it put on as a monitoring point, I would suggest that you call the California District Mining Office and talk to somebody there. Beth, did you have the list of?
We have, yes, there are, they look like business cards, and they have a lot of the numbers that you will need to know.
We have some phone numbers listed for the California District Mining Office and the Greensburg District Mining Office as to who those people are. But if you call the California office, because they handle the permitting issues, and ask to speak to Jeff Cost.
Yeah, that's
And if you remember my name, tell him that I told you to call him and talk to him about it.
Should also have a private lab. I think that has a list of private laboratories that they use.
Yes, you can have a private lab sample your water supply.
I know these tests are never about the house we get one done.
And the department may not require the company to make it a quarterly monitoring point, but they could send the inspector out or ask the company to come and sample your water supply. So you could get it sampled regardless. It may not just be every quarter that they would sample it.
About water testing. So we live on a 95-acre farm, and we have springs that we are developing for livestock as part of our conservation plan. Sandy refused to test or even look at the springs that had not yet been developed, coming out of the ground. So they couldn't have tested flow, but they could have tested chemical composition. But according to the regs, if I'm reading them right, and other farm people might be interested in this, they should have done that testing, to the preliminary testing. So can I request from DEP that they send somebody out as we develop the springs to
Most definitely. You can request a department to do just about anything, whether they will or not is another story. But you can ask them, because you are developing those springs for livestock on the farm, okay? And it's going to be used for that. And so you can ask that they come and sample it. And while you're at it, ask them to make it a quarterly monitoring point. But all they can do is tell you no.
And if they don't do it, you should do it.
I should do what?
You should test it.
But you can have it tested by a private lab, obviously.
Yes, of course I can, but if the law says that potential sites should also be tested, right, Emily? You didn't say what,
I'm not sure because it might have been about 10, 12 years ago, there was a case that was before the board concerning groundwater on a farm that was used to raise crops. And the department filed an appeal against it and lost the appeal. The environmental hearing board said that the water for raising those crops on the farm had to be protected. So, I mean, there's some conflict there, and the board will go back and look at their previous ruling concerning that. I'm getting into Emily's territory, but I do remember that appeal. Other questions? Any others, sir?
Which streams could be potentially impacted? Which streams?
Which streams could be potentially impacted? Champion Creek and Indian Creek and some of the tributaries to those. Little Champion.
I'm on the board of directors of the Jacobs Creek Watershed Association. So are you saying neither phase of this project will have any impacts on that stream?
Which stream? Potentially it could, yes, because they're going to go over the turnpike and they're looking at going out to Mammoth and Stallstown. So they could go through that area.
This is the other way, Mike. Going like Donegal has a golf course drainage.
Yes, right.
Not county line. That's
Yeah.
the headwaters of Jacobs.
So what are the potential impacts?
Potential impacts for Jacobs Creek?
Yeah.
If they go out there, it would be the same as any other stream. It would be potentially for water loss, contamination. They would possibly discharge into those streams, or they could impact them through the mining through loss or contamination.
Who would be responsible for monitoring?
The department and the company.
Hey, Mike, did we talk about, did somebody ask a question about it, did we talk about the concern we have for the amount of water they're going to be pumping down? How they're going to...
I think Emily answered a question concerning that a little bit ago.
That is a concern, the amount of zero planning. Did you talk about pre-mining?
How are you this evening?
Okay, last questions, anybody else? Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for coming this evening. We appreciate it.